All right, so we will officially call the meeting to order at 3:07 p.m. Before we start with introductions, Jordy, are you able to put a link for the agenda in the chat for everyone?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so while he's doing that, I would love to just have us go around and share an introduction. We have new faces on here and guests that we haven't had before. So I will start. I'm Jennifer Safford, and I'm the chair of the Youth Advisory Commission. Really excited to be here today. And I'll throw it over to the person I see, Anaya.
Hi, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Anaya. I'm the Division of Youth Opportunities Fall Intern, and I'm very happy to be here. I was sitting in the previous meeting, so I'm glad to be back.
Awesome, thank you. Patty?
Yes, hi everybody. My name is Patty Ovales. I'm the director of the Job and Education Center with Worcester Community Action Council.
Awesome, great. Jody?
Me?
Yes.
Oh, hi everybody. I'm Jerry Abreu. I'm the assistant director for the Division of Youth Opportunities.
Casey?
Hey all, Casey Burns, Coalition for Health Greater Worcester. Good to see you.
Emma?
Was that me? Sorry, Kwame and I are in the same office, so I'm stealing his microphone so you don't get the reverb. But I'm Emma Clark, and I'm the assistant program coordinator for the Division of Youth Opportunities.
Awesome, thank you. Bryant?
Bryant Cortez, School Adjustment Counselor at Burncoat High School.
Judy?
Judy Kirk, retired youth development professional and past chair of this group.
Yeah. Jeff, welcome.
Hey everyone, Jeff Turgeon, Mass Hire, Central Region Workforce Board.
Kwame?
Kwame Marshall, Program Coordinator for the Division of Youth Opportunities. Hello, everyone. There's a lot of familiar faces in the room. What's up? What's up?
Hello. Mohammed?
Oh, hi. I'm just here to spectate for an assignment.
That's fine. You can introduce yourself though. Where are you spectating from?
I'm a student. I'm an undergraduate student at Worcester State University.
Awesome. Well, welcome. Dolores?
Hi, my name is Dolores. I'm part of the Youth Council Leader program.
Hi, welcome. Maya? If you're there and can hear us. Maybe not. Okay, well, Maya, if you are able to come off mute and introduce yourself, that's fine. I think you just came off mute. Nope, maybe not. Okay. All right, so welcome everyone. I actually weren't the link for the agenda. I couldn't open that. Were other people able to open that? It might just be me. I don't know.
It might be that, I don't know if you're within the school, but it might be that they're blocking access to Google Drive.
So I can't open it without requesting access.
That's weird.
Good afternoon.
All right, I'm gonna change the settings on it.
Okay, awesome, thank you. So just some quick business here. We do have the minutes from the last meeting. So if our commissioners have had a chance to look those over, I will take a motion to accept the minutes from our November meeting. If folks are looking at them and have any questions or concerns or errors or edits, please let me know. And Jordy put the link in the chat for that.
I'll make a motion.
All right. And anyone second?
Mrs. Judy L. second.
Okay. All in favor? All right, motion has passed. And I did see in the chat that Maya's microphone is not working, but is a junior at Doherty Memorial High School, a member of the Youth Council. So thank you for being here. And I actually see that somebody else hopped on. We were just doing introductions. Arson, if you want to introduce yourself and come up.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Arsen. I go to Worcester Technical High School, and I'm currently a junior, and I'm also a member of Youth Counselor. And I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome, wonderful. Thank you so much. Glad you could be here. Jody, I just checked this agenda link, and I can't get this one open either. I don't know why. So weird. Can somebody else?
I could open it on the email.
Oh, so maybe let me just go back to the email one.
I
that you sent.
could. It was a PDF that I got in the email.
Okay, let me do that so I can guide us through. I'm just gonna go on from the email. Please bear with me for a minute, folks.
Let's see.
Let's
put that in the chat as a doc.
Yeah, I can open it here too.
Yeah, no, I can't put it in the chat as a doc. Sorry.
That's all right. So I will, I'm just gonna put this to this side. It's fine. I have it open from here, but I'll just guide us through it so everybody knows what we are doing. Just let me slide this over on my screen. Okay. All right. So I just want to again thank everybody for being here. We have some special guests here because we were really interested in our meeting on focusing on the state of employment. So, you know, having gone through this year essentially and all the cuts that we saw to youth employment throughout the year, throughout the summer, we know that 2026 is going to be really crucial, but we really wanted to make sure that we had some employment partners here to be able to take place, to be able to share with us kind of their ideas on what youth employment is going to be looking like. Our commission particularly is focused on really wanting to make sure that we provide advocacy in the areas that need it. And so we want to hear as much as we can about that. So we're going to welcome Jeff Turgeon to kind of start us off with your state of the youth employment for Worcester. What are you hearing? What are you seeing? What can you tell?
Is there a way I could share my screen?
Yes, let me do that. Okay, I think you should be able to share now.
Okay, let me see if I can pull up the right window. And I did have a bit of I put together a PowerPoint. I'll breeze through some of the screens here. So, okay, folks can see the PowerPoint.
Yes.
Okay, let's see if I can get to slideshow here. Slideshow. Okay, folks see that okay? All right. So for those that don't know, workforce regions throughout Massachusetts is 16. So we're here in Central Mass. So the Mass Higher Workforce Central Region Workforce Board covers Worcester and 37 surrounding communities, basically southern Worcester County. So our job is to really bring together leaders from the employer sector, education, workforce agencies, community groups, see where the gaps are, where there needs to be further emphasis and support in order to support a strong labor supply, as well as filling any employer demands that are out there. So in short, we're trying to help make that connection between what employers need and what people need in order to have life-sustaining employment. So we work with adults, employers, and youth, including the work of our two career centers, one in Worcester and one in Southbridge. They're the ones mainly tasked with serving adult job seekers as well as the employers. We also do some industry sector training projects, whether it's, healthcare, manufacturing. Lately, we've done some IT training, but we also do second chance youth programs. So these are programs with federal WIO, the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act funding. We work with school systems for school to career connect activities to help schools to infuse career readiness into the work they're doing to get kids academically and college ready, while also adding in career focused activities and work. We do coordinate on behalf of the region with the Commonwealth, the state funded Youth Work Summer Jobs Program. I'll talk more about that and connecting activities in a moment. In the past, we'd really emphasized outreach and promotion of youth hiring through what was the Job One Youth Employment, and we're hoping to maybe look at bringing that back. We're working with state officials on the potential to do just that. I'm not going to read through all this, but basically I'd mentioned our career centers, Worcester and Southbridge, what they can do with job seekers, how they help job seekers get ready for employment, find new opportunities, or maybe training for new opportunities on the employer side, helping to source that talent, find other resources that might support them with their workforce needs. I will say that our definition of adult starts at 18, so a lot of older youth would also kind of fall into that bucket as well and can be served through the career center system. We do have a regional blueprint that really highlights where the in-demand fields are and what we're looking to do to address those skills gaps. That includes healthcare, manufacturing, transportation, warehousing, and logistics, professional and technical occupations, as well as the construction trades. So I'd mentioned before about the federal funds we receive for WIOA Youth. We've coordinated through three main organizations: Youth Opportunities Upheld, Fieldstone School, and WCAC. And these are providing intensive programming to out of school, out of work youth 16 to 24. We do go out to bid to select those providers. We have basically about 900,000 that we had issued out in the last bid. So we do this every 2 years, and we'll be coming up this spring. We'll be going back out to bid for the next 2-year cycle. We don't have our allocation yet for next year. We think it'll be probably a little bit lower than it's been in the past, just because of federal cuts. We're probably looking at, still a fairly healthy WIOA youth program overall, but probably somewhere in the order of 750,000 as opposed to 900 plus. I had mentioned our school to career programming and working with school districts in our region. So this is funded through the State Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed. We coordinate with nearly 20 school districts. So we do a lot with Worcester, obviously, but we also work in partnership, but not only with the Worcester Public Schools, but also the Blackstone Valley Hub for Workforce Development, to coordinate with schools throughout Southern Worcester County. Altogether, we're working with 19 area school districts to coordinate with them career readiness information workshops, career and job fairs, job shadow days, and then other special programming that we had done. In the last couple of years, we had actually helped launch a very unique the sport of rugby. We teamed that up with the Life Skills program, and we're able to launch a program with the Worcester Public Schools for that. We've also worked with South High Community School to help infuse their ski and after-school ski program in the winter with career skills as well. So kind of unique programming to help reach young people in a new way, combining life skills with career skills and other interests. And then one that we've worked with many on this call for in the past, which is the summer the Youth Works program. There's also a year-round component to it now. These are funded by the state, and while a lot of the funds do go to Worcester, we also have programs operating in Milford, the Blackstone Valley, and Southbridge. Our partners to do that here in Worcester, it's WCAC, as well as the city's Division of Youth Opportunities. We also partner with the Blackstone Valley Hub for Workforce Development, the Milford Youth Center, and the Center of Hope in Southbridge. So funding for this program, a majority of the funding has to go towards funding for student wages, as well as other student direct supports. And then the remaining can be spent on staff support. And so a lot of the programming is done through paid work experience. So in the summer, it's about 6 weeks at approximately 25 hours per week. And these get tweaked according to the funding and how our partners want to really make sure that they're maximizing it. So like Patty can speak to the exact number of hours that they have through WCAC's component of the program and what we're looking for in terms of that. And then there's also a YouthWorks year-round program. Again, some of them run up to 10 weeks. It's less hours, and these are again through our partners that they're managed. I'll just share this screen. There are some readiness resources that and I'll send this PowerPoint out to you all so that you can have it. But there are some free online resources that youth can tap into and you can tap into with the young people that you're working with, including the Mass Hire Job Quest portal, which offers a lot about job training information, which trainings are out there, which jobs are available. So it's really a big job board. There's also the Mass Hire CIS, which is a career information portal that the state offers. We have our Mass Hire Career Center has online tools. And then in the past, we've also highlighted the Mass Edco folks. I'm actually not sure if Mass Edco website is still up and running. I'm going to skip ahead here. So I'd mentioned the state-funded Connect Activities program. And as folks might know, a state-funded program, the funding has trended down. So in FY24, we had gotten $377,000 in FY25. That went down to $291,000. This year, it's at $261,000. So again, these are trending down. This is in line with state allocations across the board, as well as federal allocations. So I want to talk a little bit about YouthWorks funding. I'd mentioned how it's kind of trending down. One thing that the state has been able to do, and the city as well, is to offer some additional funding through the federal ARPA awards that were out there. So you can see the history here. The state line item going back to FY22 was at $24 million. It went up to $28 million, then 16, 15, and now 14. However, in FY23 and 24, the state was able to utilize the ARPA funding that it had, as well as some other escrow accounts from that, to really increase those awards. That should actually be the total awards, actually 29. So in FY22, what was actually awarded out was, in FY23, I should say, $34 million. Then it went to $29 million. That says 19 on the screen, but it should be 29. In FY25, which is this current year, it was at $23 million. And then we're looking at $14 million for this coming year. Now, besides the state funding, the city actually was able to allow us to use some ARPA funds, and the city manager and city council approved us accessing city funding to augment the state funding. So the city actually in FY23 issued 1.2 million, and then last year 200,000. So what that looks like in terms of our allocation, you could see that in FY22 we're at 1.75. Then we shot up because of that federal funding influx to 4.5 million. Then we were at about 2.8 in FY24. This year, and that included the 1.2 city funding. This year with the 200K, we're up over 2 million. And for next summer, across the board, YouthWorks has been cut about 40%. And so we will be dropping down to 1.29 million. Again, that's for the entire region. So what that means is we will be dropping about 40% from this past year, and really about 50% from 2 years ago. So we're really trending down in terms of what the YouthWorks program is able to afford. I do have some other slides here. Let me pause there because that's really the crux of where we're at with YouthWorks funding and Connected Activities funding. Any questions so far about any of that information?
I have a question. Do you happen to know more or less around how many youth this employs?
So, if we look at FY22, that was about more or less around 430 youth, or I'm sorry, about 475 youth. Then it went up to, in the big year with FY23, it was up about 750 youth. Then it dropped down to, I think it was about 575 youth. Then this past year, we were at about 450. And so this next year, we're going to be dropping down probably closer to 350. Any other questions about where we're at with YouthWorks funding? Again, the big news is that we're taking a 40% cut for this coming summer and year round. So we really rely on our partners to work with them on designing, right? So if you think about how our program operates, the board receives the funds. We then contract with those 5 organizations. Now, WCAC, as being the flagship in Worcester, receives about 55 to 60%. Then the DYO will get another, I think it's about 10% or so. And then the remaining portion gets divvied among the partners outside of Worcester. So the lion's share does still go to the city of Worcester proper. Of course, any city funds that do get that we are able manage to access, those go directly to our partners at the DYO and WCAC to infuse into Worcester. So, as I was saying, we really rely on our partners though to help us manage, well, what is that program exactly going to look like? So, do you prefer to have youth working a little bit more hours? Or do we have more youth working less hours? Those are the types of decisions that we really work with our partners to flesh out. We help guide those decisions, but we're really counting on our partners to make that work for each of their respective communities. So, we do work very closely with Jordy and Raquel, Kwame, and the team at the DYO for what they need, as well as Patty, Adriana, and the team at WCAC for how they feel the best utilization of these funds can be. So, Patty, I don't know if you want to jump in or Jordy, or anyone else about where we're at in terms of the program now and where we're headed.
Yeah, I mean, I can jump in. I think you said it. The funding is getting cut. WCAC does receive over 50% of what's allocated to the central region. But just to bring some context to it, that is, it's what, less than 800,000, and 60% of that goes towards you, not only youth wages, but any like stipends or anything that is supporting youth. 60% of that goes to that, and then the rest goes to staffing. So like last summer, WCAC was able to serve, I think the number, like we planned for close to 350, but I think we ended up serving about 330 youth. And that was a combination of different funding streams. So the majority of that funding was YouthWorks. And then we had funding through Mass Housing for about 24 youth. And then that was also a partnership with Dynamic Futures as well.
It's a great point that you utilize those other funds.
Yeah,
to
and then the
augment
city of
that.
Worcester came through with a
Yeah.
little bit of not a little bit, actually a good amount of money as well too. But the reality is that I think this summer those additional funding streams aren't a reliable option. So it looks, if I can say, it looks like it's pretty bare bones, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think from the DYL side, the only thing that I could really add, we are kind of different compared to like WCAC and some of the other partners, just because our staff are tax levied. So we don't necessarily allocate much to the staff roles. So we usually put it straight into youth payroll. However, the difference here is that we also have other funding streams a lot of the times, part of which we don't find out till later, which is usually in October, whether we get the earmark that's set for Recreation Worcester. We did get it this year, so that offsets any other issues that we may have had with funding. But again, we don't know if we'll get it for 2026. And usually we will find out by October, which is usually by the time we would have spent that money down. And the other thing I wanted to say, I think the consensus here is that usually the less money we have for youth during the summers in particular is the more violence we tend to see within the city when it comes to youth.
So if I may jump in again, another thing I forgot to mention is the way that we're looking at operating this summer is just serving one tier. So for those that aren't aware, YouthWorks runs on 4 different tiers. This region we tend to do, we don't do tier 1, so tier 2, 3, and 4. And with that, the wages differ amongst the tiers and experience and all that. If you need me to explain it further, I can. But one thing that we're looking at WCAC, because historically we serve multiple tiers within the summer, and that is multiple different wages. We're not doing that this summer. This summer we're only serving tier 2, which is the lowest wage, in hopes of being able to serve more youth. And then throughout the school year, serve the higher tiers of tier 3 and tier 4. And that itself is still going to be a small number.
And Patty, the wage is still, what is it, 1650 that you're
1625.
1625 that you'll be
Tier
paying?
2.
Yeah. So it's
Can
Yeah.
you, Patty, can you tell us a little bit about what those tiers represent, and like what is the criteria for who's in what tier and what that looks like?
Yeah, so Patty, if you want, I can start and you can jump in.
Absolutely.
So tier 1 is not work-based learning, but project-based learning. So it's really geared towards younger, say 14 and 15-year-olds that aren't ready to even be on like a work setting, and they might be given like a task to do, a project to do for the summer, and so we've traditionally shied away with that to maximize the value we have and leverage our partner support. So having them actually helping work on a job site with our partners, as opposed to just kind of working in a school setting or something on a project. So that's tier 1. They can be paid either a stipend or minimum wage. And then tier 2 is your standard work-based learning. So you're placed into a work setting, you're providing, you're working, you're getting mentorship and supervision at the job site. Of course, the case management support from Patty and her team. This goes for all the tiers. Is you're getting that support from the partner staff, case management group. But so that's where you're kind of a standard summer job, if you will. tier 3 was more or less a standard summer job, but it's in line with a specific training or trade that you're taking. And, or it might have more, so it's a little bit higher level job. It's a little bit higher level in terms of what you might be doing, and you're expected to be paid a little bit more for that. And typically the youth would be older for that. So that might be your 17, 18, 19-year-olds. Then tier 4 was really designated for, hey, these are older youth. They're using this as a springboard into a job. This is like a job placement that should be a permanent placement at the end of the day. So this is like, hey, you're trying them out for, several weeks, and then you're expected to stay on the job and be hired by them. And that paid, traditionally that would pay even higher and really be geared towards your older 22, 23, 24-year-olds. So, in the interest of really maximizing this, we are working with our partners like Patty to kind of identify like which tier do we really want to focus on, and get the most bang for the buck. And so that's where I think we're working with Patty to sort that through for Worcester.
So question, does that mean that for Recreation Worcester, we won't be able to hire tier 3 for the assistant site coordinator?
No, again, I was talking about like us sorting it through with Patty for the WCAC portion. For your portion over at the DYO, we'll work with you if you would prefer to have a mix of tier 3, tier 1, whatever, right? Like whatever we'll work out with you for your portion of the funding. Do you want to emphasize tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, and work out that mix? We're also, because there is 2 cycles, one is the summer, and then cycle 2 is that year-round piece. We're also working with our partners. Well, like the Blackstone Valley Hub, they do a lot with the year-round component, and so their split is almost like 50-50. Up in Worcester, WCAC and DYO traditionally have been much more summer focused, because it is not only a summer program and youth enhancement, it's also a violence prevention strategy for the summertime, right? So it's been more like 80-20, 85-15 in terms of the funding breakdown. So, but we're still sorting through, and that's what we're developing for next year. Hey, given the lower amounts, where's your priority? What, again, I keep saying more bang for the buck, but we really want this to be rooted in what they see as experienced partners. Like, what do you see that we really need to be concentrating on?
What I will also add to, Jerry, is that one of the new things, and Jeff, you could speak a little bit more to it, is that now there's a cap as to how much a youth can make in, like, for summer, which is our cycle 1, and then for cycle 2, which is all the other months outside of that. So when we did the math for like the higher tiers, as far as what we traditionally pay and how many hours they traditionally do, so like tier 4, we would have them work full-time hours, which for us is 37.5 hours. It didn't, like, they would have gone past the cap for summer. So that's why we're trying to see if, like, for cycle 2, we could focus on those higher tiers. But that's just for WCAC.
Do you know what the cap is going to be for each tier?
Yeah, so the summer cap is youth making $3,000 as their cap, and that's what they can take home. And then for the cycle 2, it's $5,000.
Okay.
Jeff, that's take home. That's like aside from fringe.
Well, take home
fringe.
is kind of a specific term. I probably shouldn't use that. I meant like what the youth are getting. So that's not like the total cost of the program. It's just like youth can, I think the way it's said is youth can earn up to $3,000. So I do think it would include fringe.
Yeah.
That's one of the questions we do have into them, though. I do have, the other thing I just want to mention was the state recognizing that, hey, this is seeing a dramatic cut in every community. They've put together a statewide task force to help look at what are best practices about reaching out to employers and how can we do a better job of getting private investment to match youth investment. So we had talked about this in the past, and even even with the chamber and with the city, like, hey, how can we promote, like, maybe an employer pays for half the youth wages, or maybe they pay for the youth wages for one youth and they get 2 youth on their job site, right? And so one of the things that I don't think we've ever quite managed to figure out the easiest, best way is like, well, how do you do that? Do you have the employer pay up front for the one youth to WCAC, say, and WCAC then pays the young person, or are they paying for one young person, and then WCAC, who handles the paycheck for their youth, are they paying the second youth? So just the mechanics of it weren't always as maybe clean and easy. So we're trying to figure out, like, what is the best way, like these logistics of like actually making that request to the employer. And so that's something we are hoping to do for this coming summer, is to have a more robust outreach effort to employers about investing actual dollars into supporting youth employment to augment this investment from the state and whatever else the city might be able to offer, if indeed anything, this summer. So
Yeah, thank you for that. I wish that Virginia was on. Virginia Murphy is one of our commissioners, with the chamber, and I do love the idea of thinking about that, how to really get that private investment up. And I am wondering if, the chamber has some ways that they can assist with that. This part has been extremely helpful, just in understanding the kind of bleak way that we're seeing that this may is looking for 2026. I saw Mary Beth was able to join us. Welcome. I don't know if we're allowing all of our employment folks to add to this conversation, because we as a Youth Advisory Commission are just seeking to really understand kind of the state of youth employment and really see how we can best work as advocates here. So I want to open that up if there's anything you would like to add here to the conversation.
Jen. And sorry I was late. Yeah, I think, to the point of engaging the chamber, Karen Pelletier and Jeff and I know Liz Hamilton have had conversations. I think that it's in this current economy, I think it may be difficult to drum up local sponsorship, but not to say we shouldn't try. I think we should try to develop a cohesive, unified campaign. The mechanics of it, we can figure that out. But I think the other avenue is, so I'm on the Workforce Solutions Group, which is the statewide advocacy group for state level workforce resources. And YouthWorks is the top priority for that group, among many other workforce strategies and resources. But we just met late last week around our strategy for YouthWorks. And, this current administration, I think, talks a lot about the importance of youth employment without actually putting their money where their mouth is. If anything, have precipitously declined the investment, but for ARPA dollars. So Commonwealth Corporation, I think, is a good, which administers the actual YouthWorks funds, is a good ally for all the regions. But I do think a regional, more intentional advocacy approach with the legislature will be incredibly important this year. I do not think the fiscal year budget is going to see any inch of movement on the governor's budget or even the Senate or House floor per se, but maybe a supplemental budget could help infuse additional resources into YouthWorks. So I think that's another area that it would be great to maybe align with the Workforce Solutions Group with more regional context and stories, and make sure that we're at the advocacy days, make sure that we're talking to our delegation, etc.
Mary Beth, I've been talking to Cole Angley at the Mass
Yeah.
Workforce Association, and he has suggested we maybe, team up with, especially on the Senate side, maybe like
Yes.
Senator Kennedy or someone to be kind of help us be a champion for that. So,
Yeah.
I think maybe we'll coordinate with you and Cole to see if we can make that happen.
Yeah, I think that's great. And certainly Senator Kennedy and Senator Moore too. And
Yeah.
actually probably our biggest local champion is Rep Keefe.
Yeah.
They're not, the Worcester delegation typically isn't leading a sponsorship per se for YouthWorks, but they'll always sign on. And Rep Keefe is definitely somebody that we've been talking about. Luke Finfer has
Yeah.
a relationship with her too.
The other thing that we've been very intentional about not just spending money in Worcester with YouthWorks.
Yeah.
And I do think that we need to make sure that story, like Brian Murray down in Milford, needs to help, kind of step up. Like we've carved out funding for Milford. Well, that should hopefully come with some support from the Milford delegation as well, right? Like,
Yeah. And this
so
yeah, this next upcoming fiscal year for FY27 is, Jen, I think you just used the word bleak. It is not looking good for the FY27 budget year. So among priorities like housing and transportation, childcare, youth employment is going to most likely take a back seat, but the more vocal we are, the more we can try to get some attention on it. Yeah.
And one of the it can get a bit confusing. Is so YouthWorks is what's called forward funded. So next summer is actually FY27, but we're using FY26 funding.
Right.
If that makes sense. So we know what we have for next summer, which is down 40%. And so when we talk about the budget that's going to be worked on by the state in, February, March, it's going to be on the funding that will be for the following year. So it's worse than the 40%. In other words, we're talking about what's going to get cut out of the current year, which is already down 40%. So
yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad that you mentioned kind of the legislature and budget, and that was going to be my next question is there any hope? But sounds like maybe only if there's something supplemental. And I appreciate you, Jeff, in kind of sharing how this takes place in terms of timeline for us to have that, kind of knowledge. We already kind of segued into our next step, which was around advocacy strategies for youth employment. And I appreciate what you were sharing, Mary Beth, about having that alignment with the advocacy group. I think that could be a really important piece for us as a commission if we're able to get the information as to when these advocacy days are, what the language we should be using in contacting legislators, if that's, kind of the role we should be doing, or what that would look like. So I would love it if we were able to kind of regularly maybe get information to us so that we can use this commission to kind of get that word out and be able to advocate.
Yeah, absolutely. We meet every Thursday, every other Thursday. And we're just kind of gearing up post summit for legislative planning. So I'll absolutely make sure, and it'd be good to get when I send materials, get your input on them too. And when we're scheduling legislative meetings that are within our delegation, it'd be great to have someone from this group join us. So
yeah, absolutely. That'd be great. I want to open it up to any of our members or members of the Youth Council. If you have any comments or questions as we're thinking about youth employment, especially our Youth Council members, this directly, impacts you, your peers, et cetera. So anyone have questions, comments, thoughts?
I have two things that I wanted to say. Number one, not to make it sound even bleaker, but because of as you guys already know, we are getting a cut also on Shannon funds for this year, and that have diversified the funds for this upcoming grant year as well, which means that some of the entities that historically would receive a larger amount are going to receive a lot less. WCAC, Legendary Legacies, Boys and Girls Club, Worcester Youth Center. So just to kind of add to the violence prevention strategy issues that we have going on right now, especially because of the funding break that we're getting. And the other thing is, I also wanted to think about, is there any strategies that we can advocate towards the city manager as a commission for, like, given the state of where youth employment is going to be this upcoming year?
And if I may add, because I wanted to mention this too, like how it's all interconnected, it's also, there are a lot of community partners and organizations that depend on YouthWorks funds to fund their staff for summer, whether it be older youth that they are offsetting what they pay them with the YouthWorks funding. So this is going to not only impact the number of youth that we can serve and violence prevention, but also like staffing for running other summer programs in the community as well.
Excuse me. This is gonna sound like a really bleak question, but is this funding coming exactly from this, like the state or like city government, or is it like coming from other people, like the citizens?
So the majority of the funding does come through the state, and they issue it out through a state agency or a quasi-state agency called Commonwealth Corporation, that manages it on behalf of the state, statewide. So they contract with us, and then we contract with our subcontractors. So the YouthWorks funds are all state funding. In the past, we did get some funding directly from the city of Worcester. And then, as Patty mentioned, they do their best to blend this in with other grants that they get, and Jordy the same at the DYO, so to kind of supplement it with other projects. And some of those, I don't know, Patty, most of those were state as well, but maybe there's some private funds.
Yeah, I mean, Mary Beth might be able to speak a little bit more, but yeah, YouthWorks as well as some funds from the city as well, if they were available, and then other entities.
Yeah, the bulk of it is the state fiscal year. So it's the YouthWorks is funded through the state fiscal year budget, which starts in January when the governor files her budget, and then goes through a 6-month plus process through the House and Senate and conference committee. So we don't find out about it until like on a good year, late July. And then in the most recent few years, the city of Worcester has had ARPA dollars from the American Rescue Plan and have been able to carve out funds from that, but that spending is pretty much depleted. So that's not really a resource that's available any longer. And then we do have some businesses that have been, or some private funders that have provided funding for specific cohorts of youth, like UMass Dynamic Future, for example. And in some cases, occasionally you get an entity to maybe sponsor for a few $1,000s, but that's something that we probably need to grow greater. Yeah.
Thank you, Mary Beth, for that answer. I just have a broader question. So I mean, this was, the funding cuts are the outcome. So what are some of the preliminary conversations that are happening, behind the scenes that are dictating these cuts?
I think, Kwame, it's mainly revenue from the state, on the state. There are some federal policy issues and some federal side things that flow down, like the end of ARPA, right, is affecting this, but it's mainly the state revenue and what they anticipate, and then what they're funding at the state level. And there's a lot of competing interests. I mean, there's a lot of great worthy causes out there. But so it's really just that process of the state budget and where they're allocating the state funds. But if the revenue's down overall, then that's where you see us really taking a hit. And part of this, what's really driving this is those federal policies that, what is it, Mary Beth? Do you recall? It's like a $9 billion cut that they're anticipating or something statewide in
Yes.
federal
Yeah.
funds and grants that are canceled.
Yeah. So Massachusetts is our state resources and funds are supplemented by federal dollars that come into the state, like through Medicaid, SNAP, and a HUD, a bunch of other things that come in at the state level that supplement our state revenue. The current Trump administration obviously is doing a lot to significantly and substantially change the rules on SNAP, Medicaid, a bunch of things. So that there's a lot of uncertainty about the flow of federal dollars into states like Massachusetts. Interestingly enough, Massachusetts and other states in the Northeast, like New York, because of our tax base and how much we as a state contribute across our residents to federal income, we actually do a lot of subsidizing other states. But it's in all likelihood how our state formula works. We're very reliant. We have a significant reliance on supplementing our state coffers with federal dollars. And that has a lot of uncertainty and risk associated with it because of federal policy changes from the White House. That's one piece. Yeah, tax revenue has gone down. However, we also in Massachusetts have the millionaires tax, which was passed a few years ago and has generated a few $1 billion to help with the state budget, but it's restricted dollars that can only be used for education and transportation, according to the law. So its existence actually helped prevent certain cuts last year and helped level out what were better than expected revenues last year, but still not great revenues last year. This year, we expect that the state will again recoup dollars through the millionaires tax fund, but also revenue is anticipated to decline. There's another very significant effort underway through the larger business associations, like the Mass Competitive Partnership, as one example, which typically represent very large corporations in the state. There's some back end conversations and efforts that are pushing a narrative that the state budget is our state budget is too inflated for what we're overspending, what we're collecting, basically is the narrative. And that is sort of true. So there are large influential business interests, including the Mass Competitive Partnership, that are attempting an effort to essentially carve out like $9 or $10 billion out of the state budget, out of spending, because they think the budget's overinflated compared, like our budgets keep going up. We're at $60 billion right now, or $62 billion as a state budget. And when I worked in the administration, our budget was like $48 billion, and that was like 10 years ago. So our budgets are rising significantly, but our tax levy is like kind of level, if not declining. So they're attempting to make cases to shrink the budget also. And in that instance, things like YouthWorks get run over. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
It looks like you posted a link to a story about the cuts federally.
So this is a specific tracker put up by Governor Haley, and I just checked that it was updated December 10th. And it kind of dictates like what it affects throughout the state in terms of funding, and it talks about what has actually been defended in Congress.
Thank you for posting that. That's really important and helpful in us being able to kind of see where all the impacts are. Oh, yeah. One other piece that I just wanted to share as everyone was talking. The piece that really seems extremely important to talk about to me is those 14 and 15-year-olds, right? Because I think that when I think about YouthWorks, I think about, for a lot of youth, it's their very first job, right? Because they're not able to, oftentimes, if they're, going to try to get a job at like a supermarket or whatever, they're competing against, at this point, they're competing against like everyone, right? So they've got, adults, older folks. And so, people are a lot less likely to want to hire, a 14 and 15-year-old that needs a work permit versus, some folks that don't. So I think that that's the area that is most, upsetting, is that, yes, we're not going to be able to hire nearly as many young people, but it just becomes impossible for those 14 and 15-year-olds. And that's kind of that's like the big gap that I see, and where I'm thinking like there needs to be some sort of, thought process about what are we doing about our 14 and 15-year-olds. All right. So go ahead.
Can I add just like my sentiments towards that?
Please.
So this is my first year on the youth council, and I'm 16 years old right now. When I was younger, I used to go to Recreation Worcester for like probably about like 3 years, and like personally, I just didn't have a good experience. Like it just felt very like there wasn't a lot going on. Like I didn't really have fun. A lot of the counselors felt very like distant. They weren't very present in what they were doing. Um, and then I think when I was a freshman, so I would have been about like 14, I participated in MLE, which is sort of like a partner program with that, which I believe is like what you guys regard as like a tier one because you wouldn't get paid for it. And then this past year, so I was 15 this summer, and it was pretty much my first job at Recreation Worcester. And it was just a great experience, and I had a lot of fun, and I learned a lot personally. I feel like my coworkers did as well. And just being around the kids, like we all had a great time, and it was very fun to be a part of. So I'm really grateful for that opportunity.
That's awesome. That's really great to hear about your experiences, and it just kind of reaffirms that, we need those kinds of opportunities and more of them for, our, 14 and 15-year-olds to be able to access. So I definitely think that that's an area that, we definitely want to make sure that we are looking for opportunities or thinking creatively about how this can happen, understanding that, we have a we have a limited amount of funds to work with. But I think, thinking about how to be creative here would really be important. So thank you for sharing that, Maya. I appreciate that.
Maya, could I ask you a question? I'm just curious if when you became a counselor, if your thoughts about what the former counselors were like, if that perception changed at all now that you were kind of in that different role, or did you feel like, hey, having experienced maybe some counselors that weren't the best in terms of engagement, did that help make you a better counselor?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think it's both because it's like what depending on who you're working with, like it can just get so frustrating sometimes. And I'm like, okay, could you please like, like participate or do stuff? But at the same time, it's like when I compare it to when I was like, like 10 years old, it's like the counselors just like wouldn't really try, or it's like they would just be like on their phones and they wouldn't be engaged with the kids. So it's like I tried to just take like what I learned from being a part of that to like, how to communicate with the kids this past summer.
That's great. Thank you.
Good lessons.
Thank you for sharing that. And thank you to our employment partners in this work, for being here and for sharing this. Our last part is we have some updates from the Division of Youth Opportunities. So I'm going to turn it over to Jody for that.
Yes, thank you, Jen. So for updates, we have Youth Council finally are fully staffed. We are taking a little bit of a break until January. So they'll be back in January and ready. We're preparing our next project overall. So the 3 projects that we have right now, which was one of them, get youth representation in decision-making spaces, specifically boards and commissions for the city. Law-wise, it seems to be very there's no specific law on allowing 18-year-olds to or youth under 18 that not allowing them to join. But what happens is they have to be deemed kind of like what's the process called? But they have to be deemed competent to be able to be served on the board, which usually has defaulted to be 18-year-olds. And there are some boards and commissions that you have to be able to vote to be able to do so, which is kind of part of that default. So I think there's 2 strategies that we can use. It's either to try to push Vote 16, to allow 16 and 17-year-olds to vote within municipal elections, or how can we work through and see if we can change any city charter if we would like. But right now, that's kind of on Youth Council's hands. So right now, we're kind of just focused on taking the break and preparing for the spring. So we'll figure that out as we come back. Outside of that, Shannon, we still have not received the funding allocation. I do expect it to get here either this week or next week. And that'll tell us if how much we're exactly getting cut, which will affect all the partners that we're working with. I am working on the contracts back and forth with law, so there shouldn't be, once we get the funding allocation, we should have everything ready for early to mid-January for our regular contracts, but the state contract should be signed immediately, so there should be no gaps in services. So in-law has prioritized this, given that this has been an issue in previous years. With SSYI, so we still have not been able to hire for the program manager, but we do have 2 big meetings this week, one tomorrow with Comcore to discuss all the funding that we have and how can we allocate it to make sure we spend it down by the end of the year. And the other portion would be the all partner meetings that we have on Thursday for SSY and Worcester, which is going to lay out the full plan once we do have the program manager hired as well as case managers. To my knowledge, Danielle was out on vacation last week. She should be back this week at some point, but she is working on hiring, and we're hoping that we have a staff already ready for January. Outside of that, I'll let Kwame give the Red Crew update if there's any, and anything Worcester Kids for Kids.
Sure. So we actually are in the midst of hiring for 2 youth positions. So those positions are going to be the admin assistants as well as the case managers. So people can find us, excuse me, I should say interested youth should apply on the city's website. And as we get closer to the spring, we're looking at February and March, we're going to be opening up applications for the Youth Worker 2 positions, as well as the assistant site coordinator and site coordinator positions. So we're going to have some more flyers and some more visuals on that stuff soon. And we are actually in the process of right now of completing 2 babysitting cohorts for our virtual babysitting class. And that's going to be ending on this Friday. But we are going to be starting a new cohort at the end of January 26th. And we've our model has evolved a little bit. So we're going to be doing some in-person CPR classes. Traditionally, everything was virtual. And we're actually going to be doing like an end of program celebration where kids can have pizza, make connections, get certificates of completion. So that way kids are building connections and really developing those social skills while creating those introductions virtually.
Thank you, Kwame. So that's the one question I have for the What's the Kids for Kids, and that's kind of why I threw it at you, is what age are the participants they can be?
Good question. So the participants are 11 through 14 for the virtual babysitting program. And all the kids that do complete, they get a $75 certificate of completion. They get a babysitting bag, CPR certified, and I mentioned the gift card and a certificate of completion, and free pizza at the end of the program.
That's all for our updates.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you so much. Any other youth counselors have anything that you want to share or add? We really appreciate you all being on here today. All right. All right. Well, if that is all, I want to thank everyone for being here at this meeting today. Very as much as the information that we know is not great, we know that we have a purpose here, and we are going to work together to make sure that we can move into as many of these spaces of advocacy, and even kind of brainstorming and creativity as we can, because it's obviously going to take all of us to be able to kind of move forward here. So thank you all for being here, for the information, for sharing. Please keep us posted with any news and updates as they come, so that we can kind of make sure that we're focusing in our action where it needs to be. So thank you, everyone, and I hope you have a wonderful day and have a great holiday for those who we won't see before then.
Thank you.
Thank you.